Kia ora tato, everybody. Bruce Arrell's my name. I'm the director of the Goodfellow unit, and my pleasure to welcome you to our final webinar for the year. The title of it is Today I Noticed, and by the time you're finished tonight, you will understand what that means, and it'll be a sentence you'll never forget, I would suggest. Our speakers tonight are Willow Older and Deborah Huber, who are in San Francisco in California, and they're going to talk to us about Today I Noticed. So my pleasure to hand over to Deborah and Willow.
Thank you, Bruce. Kia ora and tena koutou. My name is Willow, and I'm one half of the Today I Noticed team. Absolutely delighted to be here this evening. It's actually 10:30 California time, so we are staying up because we're very excited to be here. And we're going to be talking today about Today I Noticed, a mindfulness practice that Deborah and I developed, and it's based on the transformative power of paying attention.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deborah, and we're really excited to be here this evening to talk to you about a simple and fun way to feel more present and more grateful, to feel less stressed and more focused and nourished and creative, all good things to feel. So I'm going to let Willow take it away right now.
That's right. Before we go a little further, I just want to say one couple things. One is housekeeping. Deborah and I are both operating on two screens, so you may see a little back and forth as we're checking in on the Q&A and seeing what's happening over on this side of the screen. And I also just wanted to point out that unlike many of the Goodfellow presenters, Deborah and I are not primary care physicians. We're not medical experts. We're not researchers. But in the past few years, we have presented Today I Noticed seminars and workshops for everyone from executive leadership teams, financial services professionals, educators from preschool level all the way through to university. We've spoken with marketing teams, with coaches, really you name it. And we have found time and again that this creative, fun approach to mindfulness is really a powerful tool that anyone, including primary care professionals like yourselves, as well as your patients, your colleagues, and even your friends and family, everyone can benefit from this approach to mindfulness. And it's such a powerful, simple, fun way to be more present and more mindful every single day. So with this in mind, let's begin.
We're going to start by explaining to you what Today I Noticed is. And then we'll talk about the story behind the practice, how Today I Noticed got started. And then we'll move on to talking about the 5 benefits of paying attention. And lastly, we'll talk about noticing as a way of life. That is how to integrate this simple practice of paying attention into every single day. And then, of course, we'll end with Q&A.
So we actually want to start by asking you a question, and it's simply to wonder, how do you slow down and feel more present? And if you'll just take a minute or two to make a note to yourself or throw some notes into the Q&A, we're wondering, do you do seated meditation? Do you take walks in nature? Do you take long baths? Do you snuggle with your dog? What is it that helps you slow down, feel grounded, feel nourished, feel calm? And also, in this moment, think about what's challenging for you when it comes to practicing mindfulness. What obstacles are there that make it difficult for you? And we'd love you to throw your thoughts into the Q&A or take note of them, and we can come back to them later when we are chatting with Bruce. Okay, so we're going to start tonight by asking and answering the first question, what is Today I Noticed? Well, on one hand, it's a pretty straightforward mindfulness practice that reminds us to pay attention. And we use this prompt, Today I Noticed, as a 3-word invitation. It helps us to slow down, to tune in, and to really just start paying attention to what's around us, to what's inside us. And it's also a creative practice because not only do we notice something, we write and draw something about that observation. Now, we call this combination of words and a sketch, we call it a TIN, which stands for Today I Noticed. And after creating TINs and practicing Today I Noticed for 6 years now, Deb and I have really noticed that when we pause, we get to appreciate the sweetness, the humor, the messiness that's just woven into every single day. And it's a simple way for us to instantly feel grounded, to feel calm. And even if it's a challenging situation that's in front of us, we are able to create some space for our awareness and our sense of presence to deepen. So, in this sense, this really simple mindfulness practice we found can be really quite transformational.
And as you can see, there's an example on the screen, and it says, "Today I notice the tiny rush of joy I feel when I find my favorite coffee cup is clean and ready to be filled." Willow did that one, and just so you know, my favorite coffee cup is any cup that has coffee in it.
That's right. Well, and my husband and I had actually been fighting over this cup, so I think I have to either find a new one or create a new tin.
Okay, let's take a look at a few more. This one says, "Today I notice that my heart beats quietly all day long and I rarely even notice." And it really is so easy to not notice things, but when we do slow down and pay attention, it gives us a chance to notice things and experience really a genuine sense of gratitude.
I think that that could be the beginning of an entire series, Deb, maybe for gratitude for our internal organs. How about that?
That's right. And then fingers, toes.
That's right, external body parts. Okay, the next one says, "Today I notice the ridiculous lengths I go to so I can carry all the groceries from the car to the kitchen in one trip." Now, there's nothing particularly profound about this observation, but I will bet that it is familiar. And this is just an example that these little moments are something that we can all relate to, and really feel that connection because we're sharing these simple little moments.
I do this, and I imagine a lot of you do too. There's a quote by John Kabat-Zinn, who's the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, that really captures the spirit of this. He says, "The little things, the little moments, they aren't little." And if you really think about it, our lives are literally made up of little moments. Of course, they're big moments like graduations and marriages and first accomplishments, etc. But mostly our lives are little moments, one after another. And we should pay attention to them and really savor them, because if we don't, we'll really miss sort of the fullness of our life. So we want to give you a little bit of background on the story behind Today I Noticed. Willow and I are both determined and unfortunately failed meditators. We will both go for long stretches of time, love meditating diligently and regularly, and loving the feeling of feeling grounded and calm. But inevitably, we fall off of the meditation pillow. But that doesn't mean we ever have stopped aspiring to be more present and more attentive. And ironically, Tin got started because we were not paying attention.
That
Right.
is true. Yes, we can actually cast our minds back a little over 6 years ago, and it was on a Wednesday. And Deborah and I decided that we would play a little bit of hooky, push back from our desk, and we went into San Francisco. We decided to go see a new exhibit at MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in downtown San Francisco. And we were so pleased with ourselves because we got great parking and we got our fresh hot cups of coffee, and we rocked on up to the front doors of MoMA, and we stood there for quite a while before we realized that MoMA is actually closed on Wednesdays. a small but pretty important detail that we would have known had we been paying attention. So instead of just packing up and turning around and going home, we decided that we would take ourselves on a little urban walking tour of downtown San Francisco. But we would do things a little bit differently this time. Instead of just getting caught up in our conversation as we usually do, we decided to challenge ourselves to be more present, to pay attention to what was going on all around us, what we were seeing, what we were feeling. And we just gave ourselves this little assignment. And as a result of it, boy, we had such a surprising and nourishing couple of hours where we discovered so many things. I remember there was a historic building that was hidden behind a row of pop-up food trucks. I can still remember the delicate pink flowers that were growing up through the cracks of the gray sidewalk. And I still truly remember this sweet older couple who we saw holding hands as they shuffled slowly across the street together. And if you look at this tin, Deb actually captured that idea way back when. So as these tiny little moments rose to the level of our consciousness, we found it so rewarding that we decided that we would use these words, "Today I noticed," as the basis for a creative experiment. We decided that we would write something and draw something about that illustration. And we were so excited that we decided we would start right away.
And excuse me. And so we did. We committed right there on the spot to noticing and observing every single day. We immediately zipped off to an art store and bought some simple art supplies. And the next day, we began observing and recording things in our journals. And we did this for a while, just each of us separately. We didn't really talk about it. We just sort of did it alone. But after a few weeks, we thought it might be kind of fun and interesting to share what we had both been up to. So we decided to meet at a local bar, and we bellied on up to that bar, ordered a couple of gimlets, and started paging through our journals. And as we did that, we found ourselves saying things like, "I noticed that, and I feel that way, and that happens to me." And it really, as it really made us realize how we are all connected by our universal experiences of everyday life. And Willow and I both, we talked about this. We both felt that we were becoming like almost more active participants in our lives because we were consciously engaged with the little moments. We were not charging through our day, preoccupied by our to-do list or getting home to make dinner or something that was making us anxious. We were really slowing down, and we almost felt like travelers in our own world, yeah, or our own familiar world, because we were seeing things through new eyes and in a new way. So, and I think we all know that feeling of traveling and everything is novel and it looks rich and bright and exciting. And we realized you can actually get that feeling right here at home. This tin says, just to show you a few more examples, "Today I noticed that sometimes you have to go where the sun is." And this is a little bit silly, but it shows how when we tune into our own needs, we can practice a little self-care. And, maybe that ends up putting you flat on your back on the living room floor, but you get what you need.
That's right. In my house, I have to share that sunspot with my cat. So I'm familiar with. This one is for all the dog lovers. Today I noticed that when I say my dog is perfect, I mean she's perfect for me. And we've got a lot of cat tins as well. But really, this is just to remind us that there's so much to notice about the ones we love, and that really includes our favorite furry friends. So the next one that we want to show you says, today I noticed what a difference a good night's sleep makes. And you can see it's the difference between the mindset that comes with a bad sleep and the mindset that comes with a good sleep, the dark, muddy feeling that you have when you've been up all night and tossing and turning versus that bright, vibrant sense of being ready for anything when you've had a great night's sleep and you're fully rested. So, but we wanted to show this 10 simply because there's no great artistry going on in this illustration. These are some simple watercolor marks, absolutely abstract. And I created these just to capture a feeling, not to draw what I look like dragging myself out of bed when I haven't slept all night. So no artistic skills required. We'll be talking about that again later in the webinar. But as you can see, there's no such thing as a bad 10. Any mark you put on the page is exactly right.
Because it comes from you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we really like about this practice is that it's a practice that anyone can do. It doesn't take a dramatic change in your lifestyle or your routine. You don't need to carve out a lot of time for it because it's really integrated into your day. It just requires a simple shift in your mindset. And that shift is to carry the phrase, "Today I notice," in the back of your mind and let it remind you to be intentional and tuned in as you go through your day. And it's important to highlight that we can choose where we put our attention. And there's a quote by Cal Newport, who is the author of a book called Digital Minimalism, that speaks to this. He says, what we choose to focus on and what we choose to ignore plays a role in defining the quality of our life. And this is really a good reminder that where you put your attention has a big effect on how you feel. When we focus on negative things, we tend to feel kind of lousy. And when we focus on positive things, it can really sort of lift our spirits. I know for me, how different I feel, as an example, when I doom scroll through the morning news versus when I notice the smile of a stranger and really sort of take it in.
So something else that we love about this mindfulness practice is that it is leveraging noticing, which is a totally natural act. You're already doing it. And there's actually some research that we're really excited to talk about, particularly tonight, because it comes courtesy of Dr. John Rayburn, who was a psychologist and professor in the medical and health faculty at the University of Auckland. He's also one of my favorite people. And I was lucky enough to read some of a manuscript that Dr. Rayburn is currently working on, and it's about the nature of spirituality. And he says something just fascinating about the role of paying attention in evolution. And I'm going to quote here. This was from a recent email exchange where we were talking about this. And he said that attention is the most primal aid to survival, since one needs to attend to avoid predators and to find food, the two fundamental requirements for survival and therefore evolution. We love this research. And it makes perfect sense when you think about those early cave dwellers, the ones who noticed where their predators were or noticed where the prey was. They're the ones who survived, and it was their genes that were passed on. So today I noticed is leveraging a skill that we may be genetically wired for. Now the trick, and this is what we have noticed, the trick is to catch yourself in the act of noticing. Or to put it another way, to notice what you're noticing. And that is where the mindfulness magic really happens.
So we want to talk about 5 of the benefits of paying attention. And as we do this, we'll touch upon a few ways that intentional noticing could be a helpful tool for primary care professionals. So one of them is that it helps us feel more present and grateful. When we slow down and pay attention, even if it's just for a moment, We allow ourselves to savor and appreciate the many different moments of an ordinary day. And we stop taking things for granted. We really look closely and deeply at them. And that means that we experience tiny moments and are able to, in a way that allows us to see the joy and the delight and the humor that they can bring. And what this does is it allows us to integrate positivity and gratitude into our days. And you can't help but approach patients and everyone in your life with the same expensive attitude.
Okay, I just have to say, speaking of expansive, so this happens to be go back, Deb. This happens to be a drawing that I recognize. This is Lake Tahoe, a place that is very dear to Deb's heart and to mine. And there's the dock near her house and the very cold lake that we have both jumped into.
You can tell it's cold, right?
I can tell, yes. So to come back to the topic of gratitude, this is such an important piece. And we really love this quote by Michael J. Fox, who is an actor who I'm sure you know, has been living for many years with advanced Parkinson's disease, which of course is an extremely challenging situation for him and everyone in his life. But in an interview recently, he said, gratitude makes optimism sustainable. And it's such a simple yet profound reminder of really what's important. And we really love how Today I Notice reminds us how easy it is to find things to appreciate if we just slow down and look for them.
Because they're there.
Mm-hmm. So another benefit is that mindfulness practices like Today I Notice really help us feel less stressed and more focused. So when we shift our attention to the present moment, we really let our stress and anxiety, whether it's about work or anything else is going on, it can just fade into the background a little bit. And in that sense, it really helps us feel calmer and more grounded right away, just in that instant of shifting your attention. And there's a lot of research that shows that since stress and anxiety can actually interfere with focus and attention, mindfulness practices like Today I Notice can actually help the brain rewire or reorganize themselves thanks to neuroplasticity. And of course, there are plenty of studies showing that people who completed mindfulness practices and mindfulness training were better able to focus on the present, especially on listening and visual tasks. Now, for us, what stands out is that a mindfulness practice can provide a powerful antidote to stress, to distraction, even to burnout, because it declutters and refreshes our minds. And it just creates that space that we need to feel even just a little bit more focused, a little bit more calm, a little more engaged. Now, these are all great things that we all can benefit from all the time, but they're especially valuable when you are a primary care professional who needs to be on top of your game and be focused and be present so that you can really help the patients who are relying on you.
So another benefit is that this kind of mindfulness can help us be more empathetic and compassionate. We know that practicing mindfulness can deepen our sense of connection and compassion, and that leads to a greater sense of empathy. And in a clinical setting, this definitely has important benefits because when we really look closely at people, really tune into them, we see them through more astute and empathetic eyes. And as primary care professionals, you probably have experienced this yourself. When you take the time to tune into what a patient is saying, as well as what they're not saying, and tune into the subtleties of their body, their eye contact, maybe how they're changing from appointment to appointment, you can get a more complete picture of what's going on with someone, and that helps you provide better care. Now, I will say, on a personal note, I recently went to a doctor who I'd never seen before, and she was so tuned into me, the way she interacted with me in such a compassionate and focused way. She really gave me the sense that, She cared about my health, that I mattered to her, that she wanted me to get better. And I have to say, it was immensely reassuring and comforting. And that that kind of care really does make a world of difference.
Well, it really does. And I just want to share on the other side of that spectrum, the other end of the spectrum, I still feel scarred from an appointment I had with a doctor who had seen me several times, but greeted me as if she'd never met me before in my life. And then spent the entire appointment time staring directly at the computer screen. And I was so upset. I can tell you, Deb, I came home and I changed doctors. I just said, this is not going to work and I will never go back. So it really makes a difference.
Yeah.
So really what we're talking about is communication styles. And today I notice has really helped us become more aware of communication styles, communication differences, communication choices, because when we're conscious about what we say, how we listen, how we respond to people, the words we choose to use, well, that's good for all of our relationships, whether it's at work or outside of work. This is an example of that. This tin says, today I noticed two sentences that mean the same thing, yet feel very different. That's not a bad idea versus that's a good idea. Now, these sentences mean the same thing, but one leaves you with a feeling of positivity and openness and really moving a conversation forward. And the other one shuts you down just a little bit. It's almost a criticism. It's a little bit more negative. And again, it takes you to the same place, but it's a very subtle difference in word choice that makes a big difference. So to bring it back to the primary care professional, communicating with patients who may be feeling vulnerable or scared, it really matters that you take the time to think about what you're saying, so you can really choose the words that are going to make someone feel the way you want them to feel. Here's a couple more examples of tins about communication.
Yeah. Here's something that I've noticed for a long time that is useful to think about when we're in conversation with someone. And that's the balance between listening and talking. And it says, today I noticed that there are people who like to talk and people who like to listen. And then there are the gems. And this is just to highlight how sometimes listening can be even more important than talking. I also want to point out that this is a very simple drawing, like Willow's little blurs, just a couple of circles, no grand artistic drawing skills here.
They're pretty good circles, but this one doesn't even have a
Thank you,
circle.
Willow.
So this one says, today I noticed four words that sometimes are helpful and at other times are kind of annoying. It could be worse. Now, I made this tin after someone said this to me when I was sharing something that I was feeling challenged by or stressed out about. And I know that they were trying to make me feel better, but I can tell you that these four words landed with such a thud. And as a result, I really shut down. And I know that I will be thinking very carefully before I open up to this person again. So it's just worth reminding ourselves that our words can have unexpected consequences. And it's always a good practice to carefully consider how even well-intended messages might actually be received. And speaking of unintended messages, this is just a funny little tin that is a good reminder that we should check our written words as well. Please don't use tongues to pick up the pastries.
Something I don't think either of us has ever tried. So a really important part of this practice is, in fact, the creative aspect. I think many of us would like to have an outlet for expressing ourselves creatively, but we don't necessarily feel like we have the time to fit it into our busy schedules. And today I notice gives us an opportunity to have a small or bite-sized creative practice. In the sense that we can spend as little time or as much as we want recording our observation. And the benefit of having a creative practice or taking the moment to sit down and draw is that is a time when we're totally focused on a creative act and we get lost in what we're doing. Nothing exists except for that moment. And the result of that is that we're stepping out of our everyday life and sort of being in this kind of almost bubble of a world. And that nourishes us, it energizes us and it makes us feel creative. And it also makes our minds, it helps our minds sort of in the long term, if we do something creative regularly, it really clears our minds and gives us more room for problem solving and innovation and creative thinking. So I want to say that having a practice of creative expression is really a valuable form of self-care. And when you take care of yourself, you're more effective at taking care of other people. And the last thing to say about this is that when we do have some sort of regular way to be creative, our lives feel more in balance. We're feeding different aspects of ourselves, and that makes us feel more sort of complete or whole or dimensional.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. I call it delicious. That right brain experience is just a delicious feeling. I love it. So one of the questions that we get asked sometimes is, all right, well, this all sounds great, but is everything you notice positive? Is it all sweet and joyful and unicorns and kittens? To which we say, absolutely not. And how could it be? Because we are really noticing the little moments of every little day. And we all know that there are plenty of kind of crappy things that happen in an ordinary day. And they're absolutely worth noticing and observing. And we like to point people to the pandemic, really, as a case in point. We started this practice a couple of years before the pandemic hit, and tinning our way through COVID has actually been really beneficial. It has helped us as we have had to process and synthesize these incredible challenges that really the world has experienced in the last few years. And this is a tin that I created back in, I think it was March or April of 2020. And it says, "Today I noticed how quickly we are all adapting to unfathomable change." And I can tell you that just taking the time and giving myself the time and the space to come up with this very simple sentence and this simple image was so valuable in helping me make sense of what was happening in my life and really what was happening all over the world.
Here's another one that's not all kittens and rainbows. It says, "Today I notice how sad I feel when I see a homeless person on a city street tucked away like a forgotten Easter egg." And creating this tin, it gave me a place to put the sadness I felt for the man I'd seen laying on the sidewalk in San Francisco. And as Willow said, expressing yourself creatively can help you process and deal with hard feelings. And that's certainly what we're experiencing when we do tins that are a little bit more on the, looking at sort of the harder stuff of life. So I have a feeling that some of you might be thinking, well, this is all fine and good, but I can't draw. And we have 3 words to say to you. Yes, you can, just like Willow said to me. We are all artists, and we are all artists in our own wonderful, quirky way. And when we first came up, I want to tell you that when we first came up with the idea of Today I Noticed, we were so excited. And then I just had a moment of hesitation and doubt. And I looked at Willow and I said, there's one problem. I can't draw. And she looked at me and said, yes, you can. And instead of sort of saying, no, 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 you don't understand, I really can't draw, I just decided to listen to her. And it turns out that she was right. If you think about it, when you were a kid, you didn't worry about what your drawing looked like. You didn't say, I can't draw. You didn't worry about judgment. You just enjoyed the process of drawing and probably even felt proud of what you were drawing. If you can hold a pencil, you can draw. And what comes out of that pencil is a unique expression of you. So we want to encourage you to give yourself the gift of no judgment and give it a try. And you might discover a whole new part of yourself, which is a very cool thing.
Now, usually at this part of the presentation, we take Deb's exciting and inspiring words to give you the opportunity to create your first tin. And then we even come back and share and talk about the tins and find out what people have been noticing. But we're not going to do that tonight. Although we do hope that you will take the time to create a tin or maybe many tins on your own once this webinar is over. But as we have said throughout the last few minutes, noticing is something that we are all doing. It's a totally natural act. And it's really easy to incorporate this mindfulness practice into your daily life. Since we are the last Goodfellow webinar of 2024, and there are holidays approaching, and that usually means lots of family time ahead, we want to point out that Today I Notice is actually a great activity to do with your family or your friends. And it can really be a game changer when you are connecting with kids. And there's an example that we like to share from one of our workshops. There was a mom in the group. Her name was Sarah. And it came up during the conversation that she had been really struggling to sort of connect with or have a meaningful conversation with her 8-year-old son. They had fallen into that very familiar routine where she would pick him up from school and say, how was school? Boring. What did you do today? Nothing. Sarah was really frustrated. And she knew that there was more going on in her son's brain that he just wasn't sharing with her. So we said, you know what? Why don't you try asking him what he noticed? So she left the webinar and came back later in the evening. She actually emailed us that evening. She said, well, I did what you suggested, and I picked up my son after school. It was a rainy day, and he got into the car, into the back seat. And instead of asking him, how was your day? She said, honey, what have you noticed today? And there was a long pause from the back seat. She could almost feel the wheels of his brain turning. And he said, Mom, I noticed that I love the sound of my wet rain boots squeaking on the rubber floor mat in the car. She was so surprised and absolutely delighted by this response, which of course led to a whole conversation about what else he was paying attention to, about what else they were noticing, things that they were sharing. And she would never have known what he was really paying attention to, what he was tuning into, if she hadn't simply prompted him to share something that he'd noticed.
I love that story.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to add that practicing Today I Notice with teenagers can be a really great way to see a side of them that you might not have seen before, or see them express something that they had never expressed before. And it's a great way for the teenagers to take a pause and be a little bit reflective. And these tins that are on the screen were done by teenagers. And They were made when a couple of years ago at our at Thanksgiving, our dinner included a whole group of teenagers, and we asked everyone to do a tin. Uh, we thought they'd all teenagers would roll their eyes, but in fact they didn't. They dove into the art supplies and grabbed their piece of paper and they created their tins. And we didn't say anything specific about, what kind, what kinds of things you should notice, or notice something that you're grateful for. Uh, we just told them to do a tin, and then we all shared our tins, and we were a little bit surprised at how thoughtful the teenagers' tins were. And I think that these examples show us that, like in this hyper digital world, slowing down and paying attention to what they're noticing is really a valuable way for teens to just separate themselves from the digital world and look inward and also tune into the world around them. And I'll add that they really loved seeing each other's tins, and I think they learned something about each other.
Yeah. And one thing I want to pick up on here is that, as we move into the silly season, it's also the consuming season, right? And taking time out to appreciate the little things that are not purchased in the store and are not about unwrapping and giving and getting. It's really lovely for anyone. But when you ask kids to really focus on their gratitude and to take time out and get off their phones and think about what they appreciate, it's a lovely intention, and it can also feel very high pressure. And especially for kids, really of any ages, even, young adults. So we have found that Today I Notice really is a way to access gratitude in almost a roundabout way. It's gratitude adjacent, is what we like to say. So it's a sort of gentle way to get at that sense of appreciation that you get through slowing down and paying attention. And like Deb said, it really is a wonderful way to connect more deeply and also very gently with the people that we love. So our very last slide features one of my all-time favorite tins, which Deborah created, and I'm going to let her read it.
It says, "Today I notice that the more you notice, the more you notice." And that is so true. If you start taking up this practice, you will find yourself not being able to notice. So we hope that you're inspired to start tinning, and you can grab a journal and start, or you can use the pages in our book or our calendar. We also want to let you know that you can follow us on Instagram. We post very regularly our tins. And please, if you do, tag us. We'd love to hear from you and see what you're noticing. And then also you can go to our website if you want to learn more about Today I Noticed and learn about our workshops, and everything is there. So thank you again for joining us, and I think we're ready to go to Q&A.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Gee, there's a lot in there, isn't there? Now there are some Q&A things there where people responded to the way they do today, as yin yoga, prayer in bed. Now there was one I thought you might like to. This person who's anonymous said, yes, when I was single, I could do this, but not when I'm a primary school mum. But what would you say to the mum, the primary school mum? What advice would you give her?
Well, first of all, we get it. There's always a reason to not have the time to practice mindfulness. And of course, we'd say, give Today I Noticed a whirl, because as we've said repeatedly, this is something that it's leveraging a skill that you're already using. And even if you just make a few notes about what you're noticing, in fact, pro tip, and this is something that Deb and I both do, because we can't just stop our day and take out a pen and journals and, watercolor paints. I keep a running list of things that I have noticed in the Notes app in my phone. So when I am ready to have that sort of delicious, creative, bite-sized break, which is always delicious and always nourishing, even if it's 5 minutes, and then I just have my list of things that I have noticed. I don't have to rack my brain and think, oh, what was that thing that I noticed 2 days ago? I can't remember. I've got it written down. And now I have the paper in front of me, and I've given myself the few minutes that I need to just get it down on paper and enjoy capturing that kind of observation.
And I'll just add to that, the noticing part of Today I Noticed doesn't take any time. It just takes a way of seeing, a way of going through the world, just being more aware of what you're noticing. And you also, as much as we are advocates and enthusiasts of the recording part of Today I Notice, you don't have to do it. If it's just too much, even doing the noticing part without the recording is just immensely valuable.
Yeah, and absolutely natural. You will, as Bruce said, I think at the beginning of this webinar, once you get those 3 words in the back of your brain, it's very hard to shake them. But I do actually have one more suggestion for this teacher, and that is to build your mindfulness practice around your classroom. So invite the kids to notice something, and I don't know what age they're at, but if they are, writing and drawing about something they've noticed, take the time that you've assigned to them to do your own noticing, and that's a win-win situation.
Yeah, and we actually heard from a teacher a 4th grade teacher who has at the top of her whiteboard, she printed out a big sort of banner that says, Today I Noticed, and each morning they take just a few minutes to jot down something they noticed. So that's something as a teacher you could do as well. And you could do your noticing, as Willow said, while the kids are doing theirs.
Some lovely quotes here. Jolene, it really inspired me to start drawing straight away and step over the self-judgment. I can't draw. I made my first 10 and will continue doing them. Thanks. This was very inspiring, and I'll use it in my mum life and professional life.
Oh, we love to hear that people are going to do it with their children. And so if she's taking it up in her mom life, that's great, because I think it will bring her all sorts of surprises.
Linda here. Hi, ladies. Do you ever incorporate relaxation breathing techniques with the mindfulness?
We don't prescribe it in any way in relationship to Today I Noticed. Deb and I both have various ways that we practice mindfulness. Certainly, if I'm lying awake at night, I go straight to 4-7-9 breathing, box breathing. I mean, I have a yoga practice that, of course, incorporates, deliberate controlled breathing. Anything that feels good, you should do it. And anything that makes you feel good, you should keep doing it. So we love thinking about Today I Notice is just one more tool in that mindfulness toolbox.
Does what you notice need to be attached to a feeling or just an observation?
The answer is yes. It can be anything and everything. There's no should in Today I Notice. There's no type of observation that is right or wrong, just like there's no mark on the page that's right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It is simply
anything that is noticeable. So it could be something you see, something you feel, smell, hear, and on and on.
And actually, we have prompts in our book. So if you are having trouble getting started, let me just see a couple of them, because like to Deb's point, all senses, get covered. So just to read a few of these, notice how you feel in the shower, notice something beautiful, notice something about a 4-legged creature, notice something that makes you laugh, notice how you feel during a walk in the fresh air. So it doesn't really matter how you're getting at the observation. you are strengthening the noticing muscle, no matter what it is that you are noticing.
What are your thoughts if one is noticing something that is negative a lot of the times instead of little good moments?
We spoke to that a little bit, and just to add to it, well, you can choose what to focus on. So, and I've certainly done this when I've sort of been in a bad mood and kind of seeing the world through a dirty lens. I tell myself I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to notice something beautiful um, uh, or humorous. But I sort of tell myself to shift to the more positive side, and it works. If you go, in this example, if you go outside with the intention to find something beautiful, you will find it. And that can really sort of help shift your internal feelings.
And I would actually add to that, in creating tins, what you're also doing is chronicling your life. So if you are chronicling, the things that you are really paying attention, I would, and a lot of them are negative, I would venture to say it might be time to talk to a healthcare professional. And perhaps this is a clue to needing a little bit of outside support. So it is a way to track what's going on in your life, much the way a journal is. But there is I think there's a different sense of expression and self-awareness when you are really noticing what you're noticing. I mean, we've said it already, but it creates a chronicle of what's important to you. Sometimes you might want to check in on that.
We've got an immediate behavior change in a 9-year-old. My 9-year-old daughter was watching too, and straight away wrote down quotation marks, tin. My friend was sitting alone and I joined her with a little picture of them together at a table. Thank you very much. Loved the webinar. So, wow. Home run, folks. Do you find due to your feelings or stress, etc., that the tin can be too single focused? Is there some tips around categories for us starters?
Well, again, I mean, we supply prompts in the book, but if you you can also just look at our Instagram page, and when you do, you will see that there are no categories. And again, it really comes back to there's no right or wrong way to be noticing things. There's nothing is too small to be worth noticing. We say that to each other all the time. So the categories of noticing are as broad or as narrow as your observation in that moment. Deb?
And I think it's actually sort of interesting to see if there are patterns in what you're noticing. If you're always noticing, sounds, what does that tell you about yourself? Does it tell you something you didn't think about before? I know something I've learned about myself through this process of tinning is that I notice people a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily something I had thought about, but through tinning, I realized that's often where my attention goes.
Yeah, and I notice things that are kind of funny or make me laugh or wacky, that sort of thing. So Deb and we have very different ways of viewing the world that we didn't know about until we started sharing our tins. And one thing that is kind of worth mentioning, because we love it, our Instagram page, which we post to very regularly, it's an extension of this conversation that we had way back in the beginning when we bellied up to the bar and ordered some gimlets and started leafing through our journals together. And we still surprise each other. Every time one of us posts, the other one is seeing it for the first time. So we get that same surprise and delight that our followers get. And that little bit of insight into what I get to see what's been on Deb's mind, and she gets to see what I've been noticing. And it's really fun.
Love the idea of tin. Thank you. Can't wait to get started and also share with some patients. I'm a health coach in primary care. So, so you're definitely going to be getting some behavior change here. This would be a wonderful place to start in daycares and primary schools to help develop gratefulness to grow into more empathic and caring adults.
We actually
Wow.
spoke at a mindfulness summit for preschool educators and exploring the topic of mindfulness. And it was fascinating to think about how to apply Today I Noticed, even with fidgety preschoolers. But the benefits are, kids need mindfulness more than ever before. They need resilience, they need flexibility, they need to be able to adapt to changing and stressful situations. Mindfulness obviously is a tool for that. And there are also huge benefits within the classroom itself, because kids who are practicing mindfulness, research shows that it's a calmer environment. They listen to instruction better, they pay attention better, they're kinder, they're more empathetic. So the earlier that we can get kids started down that path and incorporating mindfulness practices, the better everyone is in the long run.
So we've run out of questions. I wonder if the two of you would like just to make any final comments, because this has been the most wonderful session.
This was something that we started a little over 6 years ago as a totally private experiment, a little project that we wanted to have fun with together. And we had no idea that it would take us down the paths that it has taken us down. Today I Noticed workshops and books and calendar and all this stuff. But the reason that we are still going strong 6 years later is because we tapped into something that is easy, it's fun, it's creative, it is powerful, it's profound, and it brings us so much joy to share this practice with people like you, this audience. And we really just are so thrilled to have the chance to speak to your group tonight, Bruce. So thank you for the invitation. And we really hope that you will get that little 3-word prompt in the back of your brain and see how it transforms your life.
Okay, well, on behalf of the Goodfellow unit, just like to thank you too. I think it's been a great way to finish the year. So thank you very much. And we'll close the show down now, and people can go away and start drawing.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, thank you for having us.